It's a real honor for me to introduce our next speaker. I've known Bob McDowell since prior to coming to Microsoft. In fact, he recruited me to Microsoft. I actually only had 2 interviews prior to coming to Microsoft. I probably shouldn't say this with Orlando backstage, but I only interviewed with Bob and with HR and discussed the job with Bob, talked about what I was going to do, saw Bob as my mentor, somebody I could really learn from. Negotiated the package, the compensation package with him, signed the compensation package, and was waiting to come to Microsoft. And about a week before my start date, I got a call from HR saying, "We've had a little bit of a reorg. Bob thought you were a pretty good guy, and he thought maybe you wouldn't mind working for somebody else. Is that okay?" I still came to Microsoft, never mind that. Bob started MCS about 10 years ago. 10 years ago this year. A lot of people think of Bob as the father of MCS. But for those of you that know him, his level of experience and maturity, years of experience, I think calling him the father of MCS plays it down too much, plays down his contribution too much. He's been around too long, he's done too much. And so what I'd like to do is introduce Bob the way I like to think of him. Please welcome Bob McDowell, the great-great-grandfather of MCS.
Please welcome Bob McDowell.
The grandfather of MCS. I remember several years ago I was in Australia, and I was asked to keynote the TechEd conference. And a relatively young man came up to me, manager of the event, and he said, hadn't met me before, wondered if he could use the bio that was out on the net, and I said, fine, to introduce me. So he gets up on stage, 1,000 folks in the audience, he's reading from it. I'd like to introduce Bob McDowell, Vice President, blah, 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 blah. And Mr. McDowell has, whatever it was at the time, over 28 years experience in the IT industry. And he stops, looks down at the paper, looks up, and he says, 28 years? That is a very, very long time. Then he looks down again, looks up, and he says, wow, that's longer than Microsoft's even existed. So I was feeling very young and vibrant by the time I got up on stage. But I'll tell you, of my years in this industry, the last 11 have certainly been the most exciting. And I am privileged to be with you this morning, or this afternoon, and speak to this audience in particular, because as most of you know, I have some passion around the services business in general and the strategic importance of that business to our company going forward, and in particular, the audience I'm speaking to here. What I'm going to talk about is just a couple of slides that I used at MGS to look at the evolution that our company is just beginning to go through, dramatic evolution, and focus specifically on what I think that means as it relates to a dramatic change in the relationship we have with our customers. And then I'm going to focus in specifically on services and specifically on the field organization. I'm going to share some data with you that actually may surprise you. Interestingly enough, it seems to have surprised the few audiences that I've shared with it already, not only where we've come so far, but the importance to this company of our being successful with what I believe to be the most important asset we have to be successful with our customers beyond the product, and that is, of course, the technical resource in the field. The implications on all of you in terms of expectations are dramatically higher, and I think quite differently than the past. And in the end, 4 or 5 years from now, we're going to look back, and in part, our success will have been dependent on how we leverage the asset that you represent. I was thinking a little bit about MCS, having fathered it, I guess, There are all kinds of war stories I could tell you, but I won't belabor you with that. But there's one that I often think about that really taught me two lessons that I would like all of you to think about, at least one of them, as you go forward. I think sometimes we spend too much time internally within Microsoft thinking about our distinct organizations that we're part of, or what we're called, MCS, PSS, SEs, TS, whatever. And I learned a little lesson that really hit home what I think our customers really want of us. I joined the company, spent a couple of months in the field, reaching out to the customers to try to understand what services that I needed to offer with MCS. And in the process, tried to come up with a name that was distinct for that service we would offer. And so I came up with what has infamously been referred to, many of you or most of you here, not long enough to go back and remember that, but for 1 year, MCS was not MCS. I had decided what we would call it would be Microsoft Information Technology Integration Services. Microsoft ITIS. Now, Bill didn't like this. He let me know that, but he said, we hired you to do this, so go ahead. Well, a year later, Bill was right, and I learned two lessons. Because Microsoft ITIS, as it became known, the competition decided a nice tagline was Microsoft ITIS, once you get it, you can't get rid of it, which was not exactly the message I was trying to get across. So two lessons. One, I decided that clearly my career did not exist in marketing and brand management. The other is that wasn't what the customer was interested in. The customer wanted a relationship with Microsoft. They want to look at Microsoft as an entity. They want it to be nearly invisible, whether they're dealing with consulting or system engineers or technical technology specialists or PSS or sales or marketing or whatever. And I think it serves us all well to remember that in the end, our ability to compete successfully and differentiate ourselves from our competition is our ability to speak as one entity and for the customer in the end to have satisfaction with us independent of the service offering that actually touches him or her. Microsoft is in the middle of a very dramatic evolution. Many product companies don't get the privilege, frankly, of going through this. They fail early on. But the successful technology product companies eventually evolve over time, when they're as successful as we've been fortunate enough to be tested not as a product supplier, but as a value-added relationship. I remember early on at Microsoft, I was introduced to a concept that was a little weird to me. It was referred to as a shootout. Apparently the idea was that a product manager would get up on stage at some convention from Microsoft, and he or she would have someone on the other end of the stage from some deviant software company. That's, of course, any company selling software that isn't Microsoft-oriented or norted. So you'd have the Excel person on one end and Quattro Pro on the other, and they'd shoot it out. The one with the most features, who lasted longest and didn't crash the demo, won. It was a feature battle. We are evolving to a totally different sense of the world. You talk to people who are building our technology in those product groups today, and they're thinking about customer scenarios. They're trying to understand how it's going to be used in the real world. That is a sign of dramatic maturing in the customer sense of us and us as a technology supplier. We talk a lot about our partners. One of the most unique, strongest assets that we have, and very differentiated from our competition. And we have in the past talked about the programs to support that, very important. But what we are going to have to evolve to is an environment where we differentiate one partner from another. It is great to be certified in our technology. It is even greater to be certified and have actual experience implementing it, managing projects including it, understanding methodologies that make sense to employ it. And I argued at MGS that the sales force and yourselves as well are going to have to be prepared to have a discussion with the customer that doesn't just say we have 30,000 solution providers on earth, but rather that we understand your problem enough that here are the one or two that may be able to solve the problem. And we've got to be able to say the same thing to any partner. Sales quotas aren't going away, nor should they. But we are thinking beyond a sales quota, and in the end, our success is going to be dependent on the customer's assessment of the satisfaction they have in dealing with us across a broad spectrum. Service, obviously, a component of that. In the long term, that will lead to exceeding sales quota. In the short term, the measurement process has to go beyond that to true assessments of customer satisfaction. Account management. I happen to dislike the term account. I have this balance sheet kind of view of the world, numbers and stuff. We are talking about a relationship. If you are going to sell successfully, you've got to understand that people buy from people they trust. Do I look that person in the eye and believe they'll back me up in the inevitable day when it goes bad? Will service be there? Will the product group help? Will sales respond? We have got to move to an environment where customers truly see us as an important value-added relationship. And the final bullet, we are evolving from a packaged product company to a value-added services company. We are still at the core the same company that we started out as. We are a software company, will be for our existence. But the implications of offering software as a service and value-added services on top of that changes dramatically the way we deal with customers and changes dramatically who we are competing with. What does this mean? Here's a couple of data points that I shared in Atlanta. Long-term commitment. That means an account representative on the whole is there for multiple years, not one. It means that when you're thinking about on-site consulting and service, it isn't project by project by project, resell it, resell it, resell it. It talks about a long-term relationship where you're just presumed to be part of the added value of their staff. It is a natural budget line to include you in that discussion, not having to resell it every time. Jim Hebe is the president of Freightliner. It's a heavy-duty truck manufacturer who, in our old labeling, used to be maybe still is, a mid-range account because of its number of PCs. The CEO and I have known each other for 8 years. They are one of our earliest purchasers of a so-called enterprise program manager. Our account relationship there goes back a long way. In spite of an existing relationship with IBM, bet the farm on their e-commerce strategy on us. Have gone public several times about their support of our strategy, got acquired a few years ago by Daimler-Benz, and are now part of the merger between Chrysler and Daimler. Significant influence and a relationship that goes back a long way. That's the kind of model that we have to focus on for all of our major customers going forward. Shared risk. That announcement we made with Ford, the chairman of Ford, Nasser, and Steve, talking about the business relationship between our two companies, that wasn't just us selling software to them. That was an establishment of a business relationship that is long-term in view, and to a large extent, our upside there is dependent on the success of that relationship, not just the purchase of software. Integrated planning. Queensland is a state in Australia that doesn't get quite the attention New South Wales and Victoria does, where you find Sydney and Melbourne. Queensland has great beaches. Queensland is a resort area, but they want to draw in more business. Our team in Brisbane decided to focus on that community, decided to share. We moved down some research and development people to speak to them and share where we were going. Long story short, the result of that is an agreement between ourselves and the government to form an integrated technology development center, including partners of ours as well, system engineers and consultants manning it. A big revenue generator by itself? No. But a leverage point to embed us in that relationship such that we are just a natural part of their planning process? Yes. Personal relationships. Some of you at MGS may have seen Don Upson, who I had invited to speak at the session that I gave. Don is the first Secretary of Technology in the United States. appointed by the governor of that state. The account team there and the consultants working with him, I spending some time, asked him to come to speak to that audience. I believe the reviews suggest that his comments were one of the best received, unprompted by us. No motivation except that we'd asked him to be there. No review of the script, and probably the best advertisement for a Microsoft commitment of any individual in our company. Multifaceted. I've decided to have a new model for selling. My view is that the strongest sales aid you have is a case study example of a customer who's respected by the customer you're selling to. So our team in San Jose, Costa Rica, set the model for me. The last time I was down there, they had me call on a number of accounts, including the president of the country. And they had set it up so the president and I would go on television together to demonstrate his use of Exchange. So there we are, live television. He's going through it, asking me how to spell certain words and the right email address for Bill, and off it goes. Live television demonstrating to all the citizens of the country that Exchange is the way to go. That's my new definition of reference selling. That's the model we ought to be shooting for everywhere. By the way, to show you how some of this may sound a little over the top at first, I liked that idea so much. About 2 weeks ago, I was in Caracas. Caracas has got a new president, you may be aware. He's gotten a certain amount of attention. So I go out and meet him at his residence. Sales team has set it up. We have a nice conversation. So I said, hey, if I come back here, would you go on television with me and demonstrate Exchange for all of Venezuela? He said, fine. I'm going back November 15th. See, if you just ask for the business, you get it. Customized and differentiated means we have to think more out of the box. And mutual respect means what it says. It means, for example, that when the CTO of Texaco was awarded a Texaco Fellowship, the top award you can give to anybody technically in the company asked Microsoft and IBM and others for an endorsement, all of which included heavy endorsement for that. He was kind enough to volunteer to be included in a book that I've just finished. I almost have to hold him back on his wild endorsement of Microsoft. When you get to that level of mutual respect, you treasure it as the ultimate compliment to you as a supplier. The flip side of the rule applies as well. I am damn proud of being part of this company, and I give respect to every customer that I come in contact with, and I expect it in return. At some point, you need to learn when to fire a customer as well. All this implies some basic fundamentals that any service component is going to be part of. It means account planning at a different level, and a sales team is implementing systems to support that. The service element has to be a factor from day one. Innovative approaches talk about different ways to integrate services into the sale. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Strategic intelligence means I don't want to just know what partners of our competition are on site. I want to know what ones are on site, who's the relationship they have with them, what is the system plan that's being done to support the business plan and the account, and why aren't we in there where we should be when we aren't, and who's trying to get us out when we're in there and we should know more about them. A level of intelligence that you cannot get any other way than to leverage the on-site technical resources, the PSS account relationships that are being involved, TS and SE people involved in it as well. Regular communications means we need to get more aggressive about talking to our customers about what we did for them last month and what we're going to do for them next month. You'd be amazed at the number of customers I meet with at the executive level that have no earthly idea of the commitment of resources we would have made, and most of them coming from this audience, to solve past problems or ones we've committed to for future. We've got to get more aggressive about that. It talks about engaging with them at a business level. And it talks about getting to the point where we all agree that any enterprise agreement, any sales agreement with any enterprise customer, and I would argue, frankly, with most mid-sized organization, Any one of those agreements that does not include PSS and MCS services integrated in it from day one is an incomplete sale. Incomplete. And I said that same thing to the sales audience in Atlanta, and I got the same response. We are at a time in this company where if you are engaged at all in some enthusiasm and passion around the value of services, technical services of any time, there is not a better time to be part of this company in terms of the understanding of its value and the enthusiasm from top down the organization has to leveraging that in a more aggressive way than we would have in the past. Okay, some data that might surprise you. MCS. I did form it. There were 0 people day one. Then I arrived, there was 1. Now we had 1 who could sell it and nobody could do it, so we had a real problem there. So Mike Maples at the time, he's helped me out. We're out kind of pounding the pavement. We find a big opportunity at Ford Motor Company. And as often happens in building a service business, we were able to sell it, but we had no one to do it. So I had a naive view of the world. I said, hey, no problem. I'll just go with the product group. I'll evangelize about the joys of working in the field, leaving Redmond, the campus, the cafeterias, the volleyball courts, the Pacific Northwest, and I'm going to convince them to move to Detroit. Because we sold the business at Ford. I mean, Detroit was, this is our first EPM. We didn't call it that at the time. 1 full-time year in Detroit. I tried everything. I started calling it Detroit, you know, just to try. But it was getting nowhere. But then finally someone signed up, young fellow named Gene Kavner. Got him to go out there, and I said, wow, it's my sales skills there. I really had a secret message that must have really motivated those product people who want to move to the field, move to the real world. So I asked Gene, what was it that sold him? He said, well, he had a girlfriend in Detroit and a college degree he wanted to finish when he was back there. So I needed to keep searching, but we did find some others to join. Look at that growth. And what do we announce at MGS this year? I said it. More importantly, Steve Ballmer said it. We're going to take the restrictions off the growth of MCS, and we're going to grow it as fast and as large as we can, generating profit for the company to meet the customer demand. PSS. Remember my first tour of PSS when I joined the company? Someone saw me walking around. I guess they thought I looked corporate or something. Gray hair even then, a little more, but not much. They wanted to take me on a tour to show me how PSS was moving toward a corporate focus. We had 1 group in the United States then. They were all in Redmond. And they took me on a tour and told me they're going to span the work hours to meet the needs of the enterprise. They're going to work 6 hours a day. I'm sorry, 6 days a week, up from 2. 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. I said, that was really great. Probably going to help our customers in New York, but probably irrelevant by the time you got to London. Look at it now. 24/7 support. We're making a commitment to every customer. I know we're not quite there yet, but we've committed ourselves to invest in the resources to meet a standard of performance that's equal anywhere on earth we sell our product. Our ability to deliver on that promise, I guarantee you, as we, quote, scale up, as we are the platform for mission-critical applications. The ability for us to meet that is going to be a determinant on our success or failure as a company, but we have committed the resources to do it. Technology specialists, system engineers. A lot of people say this is a little harder group to kind of figure out, you know, because they're not like a distinct organization. They're parts of other organizations. I've spent a lot of my life in the service business, and most of my life I've had a billing rate. So I tend to look at people as billing rates. My wife figured this out a few years ago. She decided she was clearly underbilled and was going to cure that for the rest of our time together. I arrive at Microsoft. We're going to build MCS. I meet the sales manager, a fellow named McIntosh. He'd figured out the value of the system engineers, as they were called at the time. In fact, I had a little problem with him. I had to get rid of my first competition to build MCS. He was selling the system engineers. $70 an hour, by the way, which was obscenely undervalued. But selling them. What are technology specialists and system engineers? They are the added value services that are built into our product. That is the customer expectation of a level of quality, technical advice and counsel that just comes with buying the product, equal to and on a par with the technical services that they have more of a choice to buy or not. But in the end, in the front end of the battle with our competition, IBM, Oracle, and Sun, it is the differentiator over and above the product that determines whether the customer wants to try it at all. And that group as well. I'm kind of amazed that we're kind of making this announcement that we're becoming a services company, because we already are one. This is the percentage of headcount in the field that related to services today. And we just announced we're taking growth restrictions off MCS. We're going to grow TS and SE resources as needed, and PSS is going to meet a standard of performance equal everywhere on earth that we sell the product. I could be wrong, but I think services is an upside career opportunity in Microsoft for the foreseeable future. Now, let me tell you to close what I think this implies. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that this isn't already happening, but it's important to reinforce that it has to happen on a scale the likes of which we haven't delivered before. The technology specialists, system engineers, as they're called differently around the world, is a resource that has got to evolve in the minds of the customers, and that means in the minds of all of us, as something beyond product knowledgeable. Of course, it starts there. But in the eyes of the customer, that resource has to be perceived as an advisor. Hewlett-Packard had this great term. Their goal was to reach the point where the customer perceived them as a company, as a trusted advisor. This resource has to be presumed to be added value in just dealing with Microsoft and looked at as a resource that advises and counsels the customer in a way that can be trusted, whether it be Microsoft-specific advice or not. PSS, at its core, of course, has to report the problems and fix them. That's what the customer's paying for. But just as the medical profession begins to look at why don't we stop worrying about fixing the problem made too late, why don't we try to prevent it in the first place? Why don't we think about planning to the extent that we don't allow a customer to engage and commit to our technology on any scale without including not just PSS support, but planning up front so that the support of that implementation we know can be dealt with properly by ourselves and the partners involved in the process. And MCS, basically today, we have really got to evolve, not stop doing, but evolve from the primary focus being project-specific, implementation, programming, technical support, to architectural design at one level we've begun, but the last two words are important. Project management consultant. No, we are not going to become system integrators on the scale of an Avanade or an IBM Global Services or whatever, but we are going to take on more and more and more responsibility to ensure that the technical commitments we make are delivered upon and that our platform can be leveraged properly. The words I used here are advisor, are planning, consultant. The added value of delivering on Microsoft's promise is embedded in large part in this audience. Let me close with a couple of comments. This slide surprises a lot of people. It surprises a lot of people outside of Microsoft. That's interesting. But I'm amazed at the surprise when I use this inside the company. You know what that says? That says the financial year that we just finished, 84% of the revenue of this company came from business and government. not toys and games. I'm not belittling any other products that we sell at all. But for now and for the foreseeable future, this company's success is dependent on our ability to be successful delivering the products and services government and business want. And by the way, that 84%, that's up from last year, when it was 81%. Our business is evolving to a dependency on being successful to business and government. And our success positioning our products and services there will determine our success going forward. A successful technology supplier to the enterprise has got to add value over and above the product. Every competitor who restricts themselves to a function feature battle, or I'm cheaper than you, or I've got this feature, and that we can have emotional religious debates all over. Put them on both ends of the stage and they'll both be right. But in the end, a customer is going to decide, who do I trust? Who can I depend on? Who's going to add value to me because of the relationship over and above the product that I buy? A successful salesperson establishes a relationship with the customer and acts as a broker of resources. That is the role of a good salesperson. The face of Microsoft, the broker of resources, he or she not being able to solve all of it themselves, obviously, but their ability to leverage the resources at hand, and in our case, we're usually outnumbered by the competition, so the ability to efficiently leverage that resource is going to be critical to our success, I would argue even our survival long-term as a company. The customer-focused technical resources, you, are the most important asset sales has. That's not just me speaking to you. I say the same thing to a sales organization. I remember early on in my time here, Bill was talking to me about the company and the culture and the core, and he said to me something that's absolutely true. He said the real crown jewels of this company exist in the intellectual capacity in those product groups. And he's right. None of us, you and I, would have anything to sell or service without the quality, product, and passion that comes out of those organizations. But if the product group embodies the crown jewels of our company, then in my view, its heart is in the field. Our ability to articulate our message, to deliver on the promise that exists in our product, and deliver truly on the differentiation we think we are between our competition, that passion, that enthusiasm, that dealing face-to-face, whether it's in Trenton, New Jersey, or Caracas, or Hong Kong, or London, or wherever, that's the heart. I'll close with a story you might get a kick out of. I was in Scotland a week or so ago. I get there a lot. Kind of like that sub. My last name probably suggests that I'm thought of reasonably well there. Was giving an impassioned speech about Microsoft and our company and our success, and I said something I've said a couple of times, which was, as you'll see in a minute, intended to be funny. I said that, look, there are some people out there that truly don't understand. Some misperceptions about Microsoft. Why? If you read some press and listen to certain government employees, you might actually begin to believe that our core strategy from the very beginning has been world dominance. I said to them, look, you know me, you know others from our company, you know us as the loving and kind company that we really are. And realize from the very beginning our goal has never been to dominate the world, but to save it. I was worried about ever getting quoted at that, and I did. It's the front page of the Sunday paper for Edinburgh last week. Happily, the reporter noted tongue-in-cheek. But this is a Microsoft audience, so I don't have to worry about tongue-in-cheek. I do believe all of us who've been here any number of days, much less years, feel some passion about this place that differentiates us from our competition. If you love to sell, there's never been a better time to be part of Microsoft because it's serious competitive selling. If you love the services business, if you love to differentiate yourself based on the technical competence and skill we have as an organization, there is not a better time to be in this organization. All of us who are here should feel unbelievable lucky to be part of it. Because 3 to 5 years from now, we're going to look back and say, hey, we were part of history. Something happened or didn't happen because of what we did. And I don't have any problem telling you and some others, look at our product. Don't you feel a moral obligation to ensure people do not use deviant software and that need to be led down the path to truth and righteousness? The Microsoft answer. Thank you very much.